So we are all set for the third session of today. So am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
Audible, sir.
Right. So speaker this time with us is our own Dr. Sudhanva Patra, who is an expert in the high energy physics. And so he's assistant professor at IIT Bhilai from past 3 years. Before that, he was an Humboldt fellow in Germany. And so he is going to speak to us about the shifting of light's wavelength after deflection from matter and particles, and mainly about the phenomena of Raman effect. So talk will go on for about 80 minutes or so, and then we will, at the end of the talk, we will open it up for the discussion. So, so we were saying initially that there will be questions and answers. So you may also think it that will be kind of an open forum, and anybody can come and discuss. So you need not to have a question as sense. If you want to add to the discussion at the end of the talk, there will be a dedicated 10 minutes. So that's how those 10 minutes are for. Okay, so in between, like some of you were saying that how the attendance will be there and what will be the feedback. The feedback, there is a dedicated feedback and assessment session right at on the final day. But in between, we may be conducting for 4 or 5 minutes or 10 minutes at the end of sessions randomly. Sometimes we will maybe allow you to come in and give feedbacks to us. But there will be a dedicated feedback session on the final day, final session, where initially there will be feedback and after that there will be assessment. Also for the attendance, so when you join, please key in your name so properly when joining on the WebEx session, because we have a way here, software where we automatically that monitors your name, like when you are online and when you are not. So attendance is taken in that way. So if you join the session, please join with your name. So that is what we would prefer if you do it that way. So other than that, so now I wouldn't take any further time in this session, and I would like to invite Dr. Sudhanva to kindly continue with his talk.
Thank you, Mahavir. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
yes, sir.
So today I'll talk about shifting of light's wavelength after deflection from matter particles. So that is the phenomenon of Raman effect, which are well popularized by all of us. And you know, this Raman effect actually get profound applications in various science and technology. And for this profound Raman scattering, Sir C.V. Raman was awarded Nobel Prize in Physics. So the first time in Asian countries, he was awarded this honorable prestigious Nobel Award. So let me declare, as Mahavir said, so I'm a high energy faculty member who are working in high energy physics, mostly in particle physics. So so that means I'm not an expert in this field of photonics. So rather being a theoretical physicist, I would like to share the excitement of this Raman effect, Raman scattering. So, and being an Indian, so how we are proud of this Sir C.V. Raman and his profound Raman scattering. So that's that excitement I would like to share rather than the expert talk in my actual lectures. So you know a little bit about Sir C.V. Raman because we name the 28th February as the National Science Day. So because of his success and excitement of this Raman scattering, and also what are the profound legacy he has led in Indian science and technology, that will also I will cover. So this talk not only give a pedagogical way its Raman and its Raman scattering, and also its little bit briefly its legacy. So rather than the technicality. So if you would like to know more about this Raman scattering, all this application selection rules, I think part of this has been covered in my morning sessions by our earlier speakers. So you can actually pose your queries or concern to them. So let's start with this phenomenon of Raman effect. why we as Indian are very proud of this Raman scattering and this effect.
Sir, sir, I think you are asking the question, I think, about Raman scattering.
No.
Oh,
Ah.
sorry.
Yeah, there's a bit of hiccup in between, but just a moment. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, right.
You can go to the
Share.
yes, share.
Share.
Here's the share. Now go to the yes. Here's the slideshow. ये छोटा वाला. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start the story. So Sir Chandrasekhar Venkat Raman. So now, since some of you have asked me, sir, are you start with the session with the questions? So let me ask you whether this is a curiosity. So why this Sir was attached to this Professor C.V. Raman? So any answers? Why this Sir tag is there? So generally, when you speak about some scientist or professor, we have to start with some professor or doctor. So why this Sir? So any answers?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, he is the first one from India who got the Nobel Prize. So, as a recognition and as a reward, the sir is attached to him.
Yeah, correct. So I'll also talk a little bit about this thing. You are rightly
Thank you,
said.
sir.
Yeah. So Sir Chandrasekhar Venkat Raman actually he born in November 7, 1988, and he died November 21st, 1970. So as you know, he won the Nobel Prize in 1930 for physics for Raman effect, or popularly known as Raman scattering. So Raman effect was first reported by Sir C.V. Raman and his student K.S. Krishnan. So besides discovering the Raman effect, he extensively studied in the field of X-ray diffraction, optics, dielectrics, and colloidal matters. So always he posed to students, ask the right questions, and the nature will open the door to her secrets. If you actually have your right framework to ask the right question to yourself, then the inquisitiveness in yourself, which will actually always strive for to answer your questions, and in the process, you may lead to new inventions and new path-breaking ideas, whether it is theoretical or experimental. So that's the most key learning from Sir C.V. Raman. And you see in the picture, so the experimental setup which was used for Raman scattering or Raman effect, I guess this is still kept in this cultivation science, the Institute of Cultivation Science, IACS, in Kolkata. So let's talk about developments leading to a discovery. What is Raman scattering? So, to understand the Raman scattering, one should have a very basic idea of Rayleigh scattering. And one should know what is the distinction between Rayleigh scattering and Raman scattering. So, if you see Rayleigh scattering, so Rayleigh discovered this phenomenon estimating the blue color of sky. Why our sky is blue? When from our childhood, when you look up, so then you will say our sky is looking blue. So the scientific reasoning behind this blue color of the sky was actually profoundly discovered by this Lord Rayleigh. And this is when the sun shines his light on this air, okay, and this scattering of these lights through this air, that's actually gives you the blue color of the sky. And in their Rayleigh scattering, so the basic idea is when an incident light is actually shines or exposed to a material, okay, and if the and material absorbs this incident radiation or incident photon, and it actually go to excited states, and again it emits a photon. Okay, if the emitted photon have the same frequency or the same energy of that of incident photon, when you talk about, so then that scattering, okay, that scattering effect is known as Rayleigh scattering. The basic idea, there is no energy loss. The energy of this incident light and this emitted light or the final state photon are exactly same. So then how could you understand in terms of classical laws of physics? So in order to understand this classical laws of physics, Rayleigh scattering is related to this elastic scattering. Okay, so elastic scattering, suppose there is a scattering, two particles actually interact and they scatter to final states. So what is the condition of this elastic scattering? This kinetic energy of the system should remain constant. So that is the basic idea of this elastic scattering. So actually same principle actually applied to this Rayleigh scattering. So Rayleigh scattering occurs when the size of the particle responsible for the scattering event is much smaller than the wavelength of the incident light. So this is the condition when this Rayleigh scattering occurs. So this the typical size of the particle is given, and what you know what is the wavelength of this incident light. So when this size of this particle is very smaller than the wavelength of light, then you expect this Rayleigh scattering, and you expect no exchange of energy, or in other words, exchange is in terms of light or photon. Your energy of this photon is related to the h nu. So h is the Planck's constant, nu the frequency of this photon. So actually then this energy is actually related to this frequency and wavelength. Okay, if you expect your energy is not changing, there is no loss of energy, then your energy of the initial photon and this emitted photon are exactly same. So same thing you can say in terms of wavelength. So in Rayleigh scattering, the wavelength of the incident radiation or the incident photon which is exposed to this material. So when you talk about experiments, you will talk about samples, materials, molecules. So when you talk about particles, you have a different nomenclature. So basically, when you wish to explain this blue color of sky, were air molecules. Okay, and these air molecules, when this, so the wavelength of this incident photon, so which was coming from this white light, so from sun, so and its emitted photon from this after interaction with these molecules are actually same. So this and another interesting observation in Rayleigh scattering was the intensity. So this is also very simple stuff. Most of us, we are actually did in 12th or BSc level physics, or in fact in chemistry. Okay, so your intensity is inversely proportional to the fourth power of this incident wavelength. So that means I is proportional to 1/λ4. If you can see in the right plot, this incident intensity is proportional to 1/λ4. So that means what you are expecting when white light shines on the air molecules, what will happen? So your intensity, so that means the particles actually, the particle having less wavelength photon, so they actually scattered more. So now you can say which range of this wavelength in the light or photon, so getting more scattered. If you see this visible range of this electromagnetic radiation, so then you will see this. You start from this violet light, then you will have other blue light, green light, and red light, and you will see, you know that this blue light has less wavelength than the red light. So the lesser light having lesser wavelength, they can scatter more, and they have a large intensity, so that we can actually see them. So now if we say comparative statement, so if your wavelength of the light for, let's say for red, so it's 700 nanometer. So that means intensity will be less. So that's a less probability you can see the red light when it actually shines on the air molecules. So that's why blue light is, their chance of blue light is more, intensity is more, then you can see all the skies all looks like blue. So that is the reason or the idea behind why the sky looks blue, and the Rayleigh scattering, the idea behind this profound actually proposal. So Rayleigh then argued that the blue color of the sea was just a reflection of the color of the sky. So also after his discovery of this scattering effect and its implication to blue color of the sky, he immediately argued that the blue color of the sea was just a reflection of the color of the sky. So at that time we have no better explanation of why the why the color of the seas looks blue. So then Rayleigh actually come up with this thus simpler extension of this scattering effect and mentioned that the color of the sea was blue because of the reflection of the color of the sky. But C.V. Raman, so he actually not convinced with this idea. So he thought maybe there is something more in the nature of suffering that others were not able to actually discover, and this intriguing idea.
Your voice is not audible.
So am I not audible? Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay.
Break.
I think this seems to be a
So
problem.
it's audible.
Maybe can you I don't know, maybe it is because of happening at your end, or it's happening to all others also, this audio breaking.
You are audible, sir.
Okay, thank you. So the very simplest idea of this Rayleigh scattering, so he actually extended to explain the blue color of the sea, but Professor C.V. Raman actually not convinced with this simpler idea, and he thought maybe something more is there in explaining this blue color of the sea. So then he started his whole journey to explain this blue color of the sea and other phenomena which is happening because of this scattering of this light via a medium or material, but with a new effect. So the story, since I told you initially, so this Raman effect, the talk which I actually trying to deliver, it's not about the technicality of this Raman effect and its application. It's rather a storytelling approach to share with you how this Raman scattering is so prominent, how we Indians are so proud of its discovery and its profound scientific legacy. So the Raman made a journey to Europe to attend the Congress of Universities of British Empire at Oxford. He received a warm welcome from J.J. Thomson, Ernest Rutherford, and William Bragg, owing to his reputation in the study of optics and acoustics. So his specialty had been the study of vibrations and sounds of strings instruments such as the violin, the Indian veena, tambura, and two uniquely Indian percussion instruments, the tabla and the mridangam. So in the right, you can see this mridangam and veena. So these are actually founded in Indian context. So actually he also has a specialty in study of these vibrations and sounds of these instruments. So but it was the return trip from London. So the story was like this. So when was Professor C.V. Raman was returning from London to Bombay, so that has actually changed forever the direction of Raman's future. So unable to accept Lord Rayleigh's explanation that color of the sea was just a reflection of the color of the sky, Raman proceeded to outline his thoughts on the matter while still at sea. So he always asks himself, so is the blue color of the sea is the only the reflection of the from the sky, or it is something to the interaction of this photon or light with this water molecules or material? So he started actually striving to actually think more and more on this effect. So then Raman proceeded to outline his thoughts on this matter while still he's in this sea. So he sent a letter to his editor of this journal Nature when his ship docked in Bombay, positing that the color of the sea was due to the light scattering by the water molecules rather than the misconception by Rayleigh that the blue color of the sea is only because of this reflection of the sky. So, and he actually named this phenomena as a molecular diffraction. So this story is actually like this, how this Raman effect came into picture, how Raman discovered this Raman scattering, how this Raman scattering was different from this Rayleigh scattering. So when I told you this Rayleigh scattering, that is related to this elastic scattering. So maybe I will pose a smaller question. So what is the key distinction between this elastic scattering and inelastic scattering? What are the key distinctions? So any answers?
Someone has answered. Can I see?
Sir, please again, you ask the question, sir, please again.
So I told you, so in Raman scattering or Rayleigh scattering, what happens? Your incident photon is interacting with a matter particle, right? So, and you have the same idea in our earlier days. This is the concept was classical scattering or relativistic scattering. So I'm talking about what do you understand by elastic scattering and inelastic scattering? What are the key difference between these two scatterings?
Sir, here medium is required and there non-elastic means it is medium
So
is.
when I talk about this is a general question, so no medium effects.
Yeah, okay, sir. Okay. Sorry, non-elastic means it is like particles don't vibrate and particles don't change their position about, don't shift from their mean position. It is non-elastic and elastic
So we are
means
talking about photon. So can you answer your question in terms of photons energy or wavelength or frequency?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In
Yes, sir.
elastic collision, there is no conservation of energy. But in elastic collision, the kinetic energy change according to the change of the wavelength, propagation of the wavelength.
Correct. So in elastic collision, which was actually key aspects in Rayleigh scattering. Okay, when an incident photon is exposed to the particle, okay, so what happens? There is no energy loss. In fact, the kinetic energy of the system is remain conserved, and what it observed, the energy of the incident photon and the energy of the emitted photon are same. So this is the usual elastic scattering. So when it comes to inelastic scattering, so we expect that there is a change in energy. Okay, so this and total energy, in relativistic also there is different, the energy momentum conservation has a different meaning. But when it comes to this inelastic scattering of this Raman effect, so actually your energy need not to be conserved for this photon. The energy of this incident photon is different from the energy of the emitted photon. And in other words, the wavelength or the frequency of the incident photon is different from the emitted photon. So that's the title of my talk. So exactly the shifting of wavelength of light when it interacts with a matter particle. So and this is actually contributed to this Raman effect. So why this Raman effect? Actually, you are saying that always particles, photon is interact with a particle. So there is why this Raman effect was not discovered before, because the chances of this occurring of this Raman effect was very rare, maybe 1% and very small. And Rayleigh scattering, most of scatterings actually categorized into Rayleigh scattering. And this Raman scattering actually as a very rare phenomena. And this rare phenomena actually got have a very hyped, and its application was extensively used when you actually developed this laser light. So with the development of this monochromatic light and this discovery of this laser, so actually when you expose this or incident this monochromatic light to the molecules or samples, whether in chemistry or in biology or in physics or other applications, we are actually able to identify different properties of the material. So using those properties, we can distinguish the shape, orientations, and that helps. And recent development of this MRI. Okay, so exactly you can pinpoint where your tissue is dead, whether you have cancerous cells or not. In biology, in chemistry, you can exactly say its application to morphology and different nanotube technology. And physics, you know, Raman scattering actually used in Raman spectroscopy in many areas. So which actually talked in extensively in our last speaker. So how this light interaction of matter and its application to various field. So what is, so let me actually have a brief idea about this Raman effect. The findings during his journey compelled Raman to research further into this topic, the molecular basis of light scattering. So back home in India, Raman and his students, so which were actually mentioning K.S. Krishnan, observed the frequency shift of the scattered light from molecules. So it was known that Rayleigh scattering did not produce a frequency shift. Hence, this was a new phenomenon. So this is just a distinction of how this Raman scattering differs from this Rayleigh scattering in terms of frequency shift. So this is, I think, most of you are actually, well, it is well-known phenomena. It is known to you. So, however, they needed to exclude this possibility that minute traces of fluorescence were causing this shift, and they need more and more observation to actually in favor of their claim that actually this in their scattering there is a shift in the frequency between this incident and this emitted photon. So, however, even after multiple purifications, the phenomena remained as it is, and their claims, what they claim, that there is indeed a shift of frequency of this incident photon and the emitted photon when it interacts with a molecule. So this molecule can be solid, gaseous, or any kind of molecules. So this their claim actually again their profound claim actually they established after confirming with this so many molecules and so many observations. So now I can pictorially you can see in the right picture there is a laser light shines on a molecules, and these molecules actually giving different lines, and depending upon the incident light. Okay, the incident light has a wavelength. Let's say this is a lambda laser, and in the after this scattering light, the scattering photon has a different wavelength. So, and depending upon the size and the shift of this wavelength from this incident photon, actually you can say, so which type of scattering is occurring. If the scattering of this wavelength of the scattered light is same as the laser light, incident light, then you can say it is a Rayleigh scattering. If the wavelength is greater than this laser wavelength of this incident light, then you can say it's a Stokes-Raman scattering. And there is a rare also rarely happening. So like it's like when you say this Stokes scattering, so that means you expect when a light shines on a molecule, the molecules absorb the photon energy, and actually this energy exchange happening, and this molecule gets to this excited state and again metastable state, then it go back to this original state by actually emitting a photon. If the emitted photon have a wavelength, if it is greater than the incident light, then you call it a Stokes line. This is that normally. But in some cases, it happens that the molecules may provide additional energy to this incidence photon. So in that case, your energy of this emitted photon become larger than your incident photon. So in that case, what happens in terms of wavelength, your scattered photon has a wavelength less than the incident photon wavelength. So this is the key distinction in naively pictorial you can understand. A light is shined on a material or molecule or a sample. If your emitted light has a different wavelength, and depending upon the strength of the wavelength, you can actually distinguish what type of Raman scattering is happening. So that actually helps to actually distinguishly study the different aspect of this molecules in physics and chemistry and other biology also. So also in terms of energy levels, so you can understand this concept very well. Suppose in Rayleigh scattering, what happens? Let's say a photon is incident on a molecule, or molecules actually go to a higher excited state, but in its virtual energy states. So particle cannot stay longer time in a virtual excited state. It has to come down again. So unless you apply external forces. So with this incident photon, this molecule goes to excited state, and again, if it brings back to the same original state, so what happens? The wavelength of this incident photon, okay, and this emitted photon while this transition from this excited state to original states, so they are actually same. So that's why in Rayleigh scattering, so in the actually right side, if you see, there is a energy levels 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if the energy states goes from 0 to a higher virtual energy state, so after staying some time, if we again go back to its original 0 states with the emission of a photon with the same wavelength of this incident light, then you can say Rayleigh scattering happenings. So this is not only in the 0 state, it can also happen in the other states also. But what I'm demonstrating here, if the molecules actually absorb this incident energy of the photon, go to a virtual state, come back to its original position, original state, emitting the photon with the same energy or the same wavelength or the same frequency, then you clearly say that Rayleigh scattering. So let's say in the Stokes-Raman scattering, what happens? So initially your molecule is in the state 0 states. Now when your light shines on these molecules, the molecules absorb this energy and it goes to the virtual energy states marked in the blue line. So now staying at some time, then it goes back to this stable states or relatively stable states in the first energy levels. Okay, so when it goes to the first energy levels, what happens? It always brings down to a lower state by emitting energy. But here you can see this difference between this energy of this emitted photon and this incident photon actually can be calculated between the energy difference between the first energy levels and the 0th energy level. So then you can say this energy of this incident photon and the final photon are not same. So this is called Stokes-Raman scattering. So that means here the energy loss is happening. So that the energy loss, the energy of this incident photon actually get reduced. So in the opposite case, so this is anti-Stokes-Raman effect. That is a very rare effect. So suppose in a certain states, let's say state 1. So if a molecule actually exposed to a incident line, and it get it is so happened that it actually gives to a higher state. But what happens in the meanwhile, the molecules also provide some energy, so that the molecule has gets in the relatively other higher states, and when you actually go back to the bring down the transition happening not to this 1th state, actually it happens to this 0th state. And so the transition from this purple color, so that requires actually more energy so than this molecule from in the blue line. So that means other way you can understand the emitted photon. Okay, the emitted photon in this transition from in the purple line. So that is more than the energy of the incident photon, which was actually exposed to this molecular material. So if this happens, energy of the incident photon is actually less than the emitted photon. So that is called anti-Stokes-Raman effect. So actually this Stokes effect and anti-Stokes effect are the very primary effect of Raman scattering. And actually this application actually can be actually well taken care and well studied in spectroscopy. So continued with this Raman effect, in 1925, Raman and his team had observed the frequency shifted scatter light in more than 50 liquids. So actually, if you are an experimentalist, you know that if you take an observation and you cannot actually claim your observation with a single observation. So in order to claim your proposal or the observation or idea, you need to actually verify your observation at many times or in a different way also. And what Raman did, he actually established his frequency shift scattering of light when interacted or exposed to this material. So in more than 50 liquids. So after having so many observations in various liquids, he actually established that, okay, whatever we are talking about, okay, when this matter actually exposed to a light and there is a shift in the wavelength or the frequency, and this is more or less is a well-established phenomena. And in 1927, Raman found that the scatter light was polarized. So scatter light was polarized when, you know, when you're talking about light, always there is a, we talk about electric and magnetic field vibrations. And when you apply the electric field and these field directions, actually they get oriented and they actually polarize. And actually Raman studied this polarizing effect of this scattering. And Raman also through his discovery was able to explain the blue color observed in the ice of alpine glaciers. So this is, if in the right panel, you can see there is a people actually standing in front of a glacier, ice glaciers. So generally the color of the ice is white. You are expecting the ice color to be white, but at this alpine glaciers of ice, so this color looks deep blue. Raman actually, with his correct Raman effect, he actually able to explain why this blue color is observed in these alpine glaciers. So that is also a very profound explanation of this blue color. Thus, he described the phenomena which he called the modified scattering in a paper in Nature. He published his work in the Nature journal. So later, the discovery came to be known as the Raman effect. So Raman effect, with this Raman effect was established. So now the question is, initially you gave your idea, you gave your hypothesis. So your hypothesis will be verified at different level, at experiments, at phenomenologically. So when your idea or hypothesis get established by observations, so that was, then it leads to a discovery. And this discovery was known as this Raman effect. So this is the story of this Raman effect, and how in a simpler language you can understand this Raman effect. So in the right panel it is demonstrated. A laser light was exposed to the sample, and it is gets scattered. And suppose a red light is exposed to the sample, and you are expecting this red light. Okay, the scatter light is red. Then if you put a filter, okay, with a different color. Let's say you filter, if you have a green filter, so then the red, you expect the red scatter light cannot actually penetrate through this filter. It will be, but what happens if it is a Raman scattering? Okay, if it is a Raman scattering, you will expect the light the wavelength can shift. The red scatter light can have it shifted or lead to a different light of other frequency or other wavelength. And this other than red light or red wavelength, so other wavelength actually observed. So that is then using this diffraction grating. So then they captured with this CCD, they captured all this coupled this detector. They established this Raman effect. So the basic idea of this Raman effect is when a light is exposed or shines on a molecules or material, so its wavelength gets changed or its frequency gets changed, there is a shift of wavelength. So that justifies the title, the shift of wavelength when a light interacts with material. So let's see what are the other applications or other story of this Raman effect. So to tell more about this Raman scattering, so this scattering is not an oscillating dipole phenomena. So this is something more. So when you actually apply an electric field, actually it induces a polarizability in an atom or a molecule given by this formula. So alpha is the polarizability and E is the electric field. So in atoms, so what happens, if the polarizability is isotropic, then the atom acts like an antion and radiates at the incident frequency. So this happens in the Rayleigh scattering. And in the molecules, the polarizability may be anisotropic and depends on the rotational and vibrational coordinates. And this can also give rise to this Raman scattering. So actually you have listened this in detailed discussion on this rotational and vibrational transitions and I think in earlier speaker and its application to various observations. My field is not that. I'll just only I'll talk about this. What is this Rayleigh scattering and Raman scattering in terms of this polarizability? In molecules, this polarizability is anisotropic, and in Rayleigh scattering, we'll expect this is isotropic. So that means if you are actually finding the anisotropic polarizability, then you can say that this molecule is Raman active. So then immediately you can say that the gross selection rule is to be a Raman active, a molecule must have anisotropic polarizability. So that's distinguished from your Raman active or Raman inactive molecules. So this is in this rotational Raman selection rule. So actually, once this idea of Raman effect was established, people actually started using this effect into technology and try to apply this Raman scattering into Raman spectroscopy. So actually Raman spectroscopy is rotational and vibrational spectroscopy of this study the properties of the molecules, not only molecules, it has extended to other branches of science. So what is this, when as a molecule rotates, the polarity presented to this electric field changes. So that means if it is a Raman active molecule, then definitely we expect the polarizability needs to change. And the induced dipole moment is modulated by the rotation and results in rotational transition. Depending upon the selection rules, so whether the transition will be allowed or not allowed, so you can say which type of transition will be allowed, whether it be Stokes line will be you can get or anti-Stokes line. So see, let's say this pictorial view. So that this J is a rotational, the energy states, rotational energy states. So the J depending upon these transitions. So if this, let's say the particle actually, molecule actually go from J states and after observing this incident photon, and if after staying in a virtual state come back to this original states J, then you will expect this Rayleigh scattering. So that means the delta J, the change in J is equal to 0. And what happens in the Stokes Raman scattering? So actually the molecule actually starts from this states J. After observing this incident photon energy, actually what happens, it actually make a transition to the state J plus 2. So that means you will see that now the energy after emitting in the state, when it comes down to this state J plus 2, after emitting this photon, this emitted photon has a different energy incident photon. So that's the Stokes Raman scattering or Stokes lines. So if the transition actually happens from J to a virtual state, and again from this staying in virtual state, it make another transition from this J minus 2. So then you will find that the molecule actually supplies some energy to this incident photon, and the emitted photon has a more energy than the incident photon. So then these lines are called Stokes, anti-Stokes lines. The energy of this emitted photon is larger than the incident photon, and the selection is like delta J equal to plus minus 2. So this is called all anti-Stokes lines. So can you just see why this another approve or decline? Susmita Deuri.
You can decline. You may ask. Susmita Dehuri, is there any question? Hello. Is there any question in between? Susmita Dehuri.
Okay, so let me continue. Actually, let me also here declare that I may be excused being not an expert in this photonics. So explanation of these rules and transition techniques, technical things about these transitions. So beyond the scope of this presentation. Hang हो जाता है. So same is also this vibrational Raman selection rules. So when actually this light incident photon actually shines on this molecule, so actual molecules actually they vibrates from its mean position or from center of mass positions, and depending upon the rules, there will be you can say whether the Raman's this molecule should be Raman active, whether the Stokes line will happen or anti-Stokes line will be happen. So let me talk about this applications. So with this basic idea of Raman scattering and this details of this selection rules, rotational and vibrational Raman selection rules. So actually in experiment it was widely used this concept to have an idea about this rotational and vibrational Raman spectroscopy and in its applications. So this is another way pictorially you can see. So this is the Raman spectroscopy in the left panel. So this is the exchange light. So when an incident light is actually shines to a molecule, molecules absorb this incident light and go to excited virtual states. And from this virtual state, it actually make a transition to another lower states. And depending upon the energy of this emitted photon, and its shift from this incident photon, you can distinguish whether the effect is an Stokes Raman effect or anti-Stokes Raman effect, and how you can distinguish from your already known IR spectroscopy. So here this you expect there is just a transition from one state to a higher state, and also there is other way you can actually depict in terms of intensity versus frequency crop. So how this the different epoch, different scatterings, Rayleigh scattering and Stokes scattering. So they actually go with this change in frequency. So Raman spectra of molecules differ from infrared spectra in their selection rules and their polarization of characteristics. Both Brillouin and Raman scattering opposed to acoustic waves in a condensed medium. Raman showed that frequency shift is a characteristic of the molecules comprising the scattering medium. It is independent of the frequency of the incident light. So this differentiates the Raman effect from this fluorescence. The Raman effect had a shift in the frequency of scattered light compared to the incident light, which did not happen in Rayleigh scattering. This is the comparison between these different scatterings which were already observed before. So what is the experimental setup? This is just naively I will explain what is this Raman effect and this Raman scattering. If you see back in those days, the analysis of light scattered by liquid was not an easy task. Thus, visual observations were made rather than the measurements of the light's wavelength. So when actually sunlight, the white light with all this visible range, so when it actually shines on a prism, so you know this prism actually makes a different, you can distinguish between different colors and splits into different color light particles. This is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violets. And from this visibility, because Raman earlier time, it was not easy for him to actually get this experiment done. So to establish its idea of the blue color of the sea is only because of the wavelength shift or the frequency shift of the photon. Okay, when it interacts with these water molecules. So initially he with his just a visualization, okay, which when you shine a white light through a prism, so what kind of color, what kind of light you are, what color of light you can getting, and what idea about wavelength. So from this wavelength and this this intensity relation with this wavelength, so he can actually have an idea. So what could be the typical intensity for a blue light? What is the typical intensity for a red light to be when it gets scattered or diffracted? So the fundamentals of Raman crucial experiment are actually outlined in the below figure. The violet light, so of the solar spectrum, is isolated with a violet filter and passed through the liquid sample. So now you expect, so if it is a Rayleigh scattering, okay, in Rayleigh scattering, a violet light is incident or shines on a sample, you will expect the light will get scattered and you will get the same violet light in the as a emitted particle. So, but what actually happens when a violet photon or the violet colored light actually shines on a scattered liquid, so it actually gets scattered to a different color. Okay, the scattered light has a different energy, different wavelength related to the different color. So this violet light of the solar spectrum is isolated with the violet filter first, then passed through a liquid sample. The most of the light emerging from the liquid sample is the same color as the incident violet beam. So since the most of the light emerging from the sample is the same color as the incident violet beam, then you will say that this scattered light is the Rayleigh scattered lights. Since the wavelength of this incident violet, incident light, which is the violet, is the same as the emitted. However, Raman and Krishnan is his student, were able to show that some of the scattered light, though it is small, the chances are small in comparison to this Rayleigh scattered lights. So there is a non-zero chances that there are some scattered light which has a different color, which they could isolate by using a green filter. So now say after this light scattered by this liquid, so if it is violet and if you place a green filter, so what happens? So you will not expect any other light or photon in after this filter, because it cannot pass through this green filter. But if you place a if you have a Raman scattering, so a violet light can get scattered from this liquid, become green light. So this green light can actually easily pass through this filter, which you can observe. So this is the very simplest, very cleanest observation by Raman and his student, which established so this wavelength shift of light when it interacts with some material or molecules. So let's continue. What is this advantage of this? So advantage of using visual observation that several substances can be studied quickly. So in its first report to Nature titled A New Type of Secondary Radiation, the Raman indicated that apart from this Rayleigh scattering, there is a second type of radiation is actually happening when it interacts with molecules or matter particles. So Raman established this using approximately 60 different liquids that have been studied, and all showed the same result. Some scattered light had a different color than the incident light. This is a very layman language. The scattered light, if the color is scattered light color is different the color of the incident light, then you will expect the Raman effect. If the color of the scattered light and emitted light is same, then the scattering will be called as Rayleigh scattering. Then the fundamental physics, again you go back to your classical laws of mechanics, elastic scattering and inelastic scattering, and its application more oriented to the spectroscopy. So thus Raman said a phenomena whose universal nature has to be recognized, actually established by their group. Although the experiment was challenging to set up and perform during those times due to non-availability of proper instruments. However, he managed to establish his idea through these visual observations. Later, it was profoundly actually verified in various experiments. So what are the challenges faced by C.V. Raman during his experimental setup? So in Raman effect, as I mentioned, when you actually shines a light to a material or a sample or a molecules, most of time what happens, you will expect the light will be getting scattered without any change of wavelength or without any change of energy. So that's the Rayleigh scattering. But there is some light which actually changes its wavelength with interacts with the matter or molecule, and this effect, which would popularly known as Raman effect, is a very rare or weak effect. So that means if you have a 1 in a million of scattering, okay, so 1 in a million of scattering can actually exhibit this change in wavelength. Suppose if you shine millions of light to a molecule or matter, so what we expect at least one event where you can expect shift in the wavelength of this incident light and the emitted or scattered light. So this explains in part why this effect was not discovered earlier, why it is so difficult to establish Raman's effect to become universal at earlier days. So in all the early light scattering studies, the excitation sources was sunlight. So that is also another challenging fact of this establishment of this Raman effect, that there is the only source available of the sunlight, which was Raman has described as being lacking the Grazer intensity. So in the below, I will actually tell you how actually this, with the discovery of this laser light, how this Raman effect actually revived. Okay, have tremendously actually popularized and has reckoned by the scientific community, and its applications actually established at a later time with the discovery of this laser light. The acquisition in 1927 by IACS, okay, of a 7-inch 18-centimeter refracting telescope enabled Raman to condense the sunlight and create a more powerful light source for his studies. Actually, he somehow managed, instead of this source only this sunlight, okay, he actually used this 18-centimeter refractive telescope to actually condense this sunlight and create a more powerful light source to actually help for his study. So in 1928, mercury arc lamp were also commercially available. He switched to this even more intense light source so that he can actually establish his results. Raman methodically set out to measure exact wavelengths of the incident and Raman scattering by replacing the observer with a pocket spectroscope. He ultimately replaced it with a quartz spectrograph with which he could photograph the spectrum of the scattered light and measure its wavelength. And he can, with this scattered light spectrum, he can actually see whether the wavelength of the scattered light is differing from this incident light and can actually in favor of his idea. These quantitative results were first published in Indian Journal of Physics on March 31st, 1928. So apart from this, there is a standard Raman effect, there is a stimulated Raman scattering and Raman amplification. So what is this stimulated Raman effect? Before understanding this stimulated Raman effect, we have to understand the spontaneous Raman effect. So spontaneous Raman effect means whenever the light is shines on a molecules or matter, depending upon the properties of this material or the molecules. So if there is a wavelength shift in the incident and emitted light or the scattered light, then you will say there is a Stokes Raman effect or anti-Stokes Raman effect. But suppose there is some possibility in a situation where we have already Raman scattered light in the medium or the material, and when you actually shine light to this medium with already this Raman scattered light, so what happens? Because of this thing, there is an additional stimulated Raman scatterings. So that actually you can populate this or enhance this Raman scattering, so that actually you can increase this chances of these observations more likely. So what happens? The Raman scattering process, as described by previously, takes place spontaneously. That is in random time intervals. One of the many incoming photons is scattered by the material with a different wavelength. This process is thus called spontaneous Raman scattering. Other than, on the other hand, stimulated Raman scattering, what happens? It can take place when some Stokes boson have previously been generated by this spontaneous Raman scattering and somehow forced to remain in the material, or when deliberately injected Stokes photons together with this incident photon or pump for light. So what happens in that case? The total Raman scattering rate is increased beyond that of spontaneous Raman scattering. Swarm photons are converted more rapidly to additional Stokes photons. So the more Stokes photons that already present, the faster more of them are added. So effectively, this amplifies the Stokes light in the presence of pump light, which is exploited in Raman amplifiers and Raman lasers. So actually, if you make it more and more Stokes lines present in your scattering experiments, so that means that you are greater chance to actually observe this phenomena. So what happens? First of all, in a million of scattering effect, if you have a million lights scattered or shines to a molecules or matter, you will expect one scattering effect, which will actually go to this Raman scattering. And if it is this rare event, if you need some mechanism to amplify this chances of this Raman scattering. So this actually stimulated Raman scattering actually helps in amplify this and enhance this effect to observe in experiments. So this actually the technical thing, they use this optical fibers and to actually enhance or amplify this stimulated Raman scatterings and they observe at receiver ends. So this is all about this stimulated Raman effect, so which amplify this chances of this Stokes Raman light. So after this basic idea of Raman scattering and its Raman effect in observers experimental tools. So how you can use it as a physicist tools. So after the publishing of his findings in Nature, the significance of Raman effect was quickly realized by other scientists across the globe. So Professor Wood, Hopkins cabled Nature to report that he had verified Raman's brilliant and surprising discovery in every particular. So he wrote that it appears to me that this very beautiful discovery which resulted from Raman's long and patient study of phenomena of light scattering is one of the most convincing proofs of quantum theory. Because Raman scattering actually used the concept of quantum nature of light and concept of photons. So Raman had recognized that his discovery was important to the debate in physics about the new quantum theory because an explanation of the new radiation required the use of photons and they are changed in energy as they interacted with the atoms in a particular molecule. So that is actually in your first lecture by Dr. Sabyasachi, he actually gave a transition how you can understand the light from this optics to this classical electromagnetic idea of this electricity and magnetism to the quantum nature of light as a photon. So you can and here in Raman effect you need to use this concept of quantum nature of light as photons and they are scattering effects because you need change in energy as they interacted with the atoms in particular molecule. So Raman also knew that there was a more important result, remarking in his 1930 Nobel Prize address, the character of the scattered radiations enables us to obtain an insight into the ultimate structure of the scattering substances. So in the first 7 years after his discovery, the Raman effect was subject of more than 700 papers, only in 7 years, in the scientific literature, mostly by physicists who were using the technique to study the vibration and rotation of molecules and relating those phenomena to the molecule structures. So at the same time, chemists become interested in Raman effect and they are actually trying how can use this tool for their scientific usage. So they also widely use this Raman effect. So this slide also tells how this Raman effect as a chemist tools. By the late 1930s, the Raman effect had become the principal method of non-destructive chemical analysis for both organic and inorganic compounds. So the unique spectrum of Raman scattering light of any substance served as a fingerprint. So that could be used for qualitative analysis, even in the mixture of materials. Further, this intensity of the spectral Raman lines was related to the amount of substance and how much present in a plethora of samples. So basically, you can, let's say, with the help of Raman spectra, you can analyze homonuclear molecules like S2, N2, and O2. You can also analyze triatomic molecules for S2O, SO2, NO2. And they are structural. Their structural property can be studied using this Raman effect. So like linear, angular, symmetric or antisymmetric nature of these structural molecules. So also with this Raman spectra, you can also get an idea about the binding forces of the atoms in a lattice and the strength and the nature of the forces which hold the crystals. So with this wide use of this Raman spectroscopy in chemistry, so the Raman spectroscopy could not no longer compete with infrared until another development in physics. So that is the laser revived Raman spectroscopy in a new form beginning in the 1960s. So this Raman effect became the adopted child of chemistry. So that was actually written by the book writer James Heben. So this is another important usage of this laser in the Raman spectroscopy. So with the laser provided an even more intense source of light that not only could serve as a probe exploring the properties of the molecule, but could also induce dramatically new effects. With the development of the Fourier transform technique and the application of computers of data handling, commercial Raman spectrum become available in 1980s, resulting resurgence of the usage of this original Raman effect. This new Raman spectroscopy has been used to monitor manufacturing processes in the petrochemical and pharmaceutical industries, because you can actually easily distinguish different characters of molecules, and illegal drug captured at a crime scene can be analyzed rapidly without breaking the evidential seal on the plastic bag. So chemist can wash paint dry and understand what reactions are occurring at the paint hardens. So using fiber optical probe, scientists can analyze nuclear waste materials from a safe distance, and they can actually use in actual various nuclear safety protocols. Photochemists and photobiologists are using these Raman techniques to record and spectra of transient chemical species, and surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy used in studying surface and reactions on surface. So in conclude, we can actually summarize what is this usage of this Raman spectroscopy. So Raman spectroscopy has the ability to provide specific biochemical information that may foreshadow the onset of cancer and other life-threatening illness. So after this key contributions of Raman effect and his discovery, so what are the attributions to him? So Raman was both a prolific investigator and a skilled communicator. He was very popular among very students. So that is the why, you know, the government of India actually declared this 28th February as a National Science Day to actually recognition of his work. So after his first publication in Raman spectra in March 1928, Indian Journal of Physics mailed 2,000 reprints to scientists in the United States, Canada, and various countries. So that's why it was actually Raman effect was so expanded and actually accommodated in the scientific community. Certainly, Raman effect was confirmed by some world's most authoritative physicists in France, Canada, and also in 1930, Raman received the Nobel Prize in Physics for his investigations on scattering of light and effects named after him as Raman effect. So this is, you can picture, you can say the man with this pagdi, white pagdi is the Professor C.V. Raman, who got the Nobel Prize, and actually he awarded this Nobel Prize actually with other delegates who actually awarded this Nobel Prize in other fields. So you can see the other Nobel Prize winners are Hans Fischer in chemistry, Carl Landsteiner in medicine, and Sinclair Lewis in literature. So that's Nobel Prize was conferred in 1930 to Professor C.V. Raman. So with this thing, what other legacy of C.V. Raman and his discovery? He established in 1904 the Indian Academy of Science. You know, there are now 3 Academy of Sciences. One is Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore. One is Nasi in Allahabad. Another in Delhi, INSA. So with this legacy of Indian Academy of Science, so other Academy of Sciences actually gradually founded by at a later time. But he founded this first time he founded this academy. Followed his academy, he actually proceedings of Indian Science Association for Cultivation of Science, Nature, and they actually published series of papers in this context of this Raman effect. At the age of 60, Raman then actually established Raman Research Institute. Actually, at that time, he was director of the ISC Bangalore, and he established this new research institute called Raman Research Institute, with the support from his own fund and also donation from he raised from other. He also remained a professor and president of Indian Academy of Science until his death in 1970. So in 1928 talk, he concluded, we are obviously only the fringe of a fascinating new region of experimental research, which promises to throw light on diverse problems relating to radiation and wave theory, X-ray optics, atomic and molecular spectra. So there are several legacy of Raman's discovery and his, you can actually find his biography. In today's time, Raman spectroscopy is acknowledged as a promising biochemical tool due to its ability to detect pre-malignancy and early malignancy stages of cancer. So it can be actually accurately in biology or medicine, you can actually using this Raman effect and technology, you can accurately tell which part of your cell is cancerous cells and what stages you are. So that's a remarkable application of this Raman effect. So thank you all for watching this presentation. And I think this story which I shared with you as a scientific discovery of Professor C.V. Raman as a Raman effect and Raman scattering, and why this Raman scattering actually wide application all over the world, and why we Indians should always and are always proud of this discovery and towards beloved C.V. Raman. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sudhanwa. Let's thank Dr. Sudhanwa once again. And the floor is now open for discussion. So, so if you have hold on to your thoughts, please feel free to speak and add to this discussion. Yeah, if you have any doubts, any questions, if you want to add to the
this story
story to the talk, then feel free to, please.
I think this is a simple idea. All are convinced with this Raman effect.
Yeah. So if you would like to.
If I may, can I add a comment? This is Shobhana Chakraborty.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, so it deals with this Raman spectroscopy only. So it's just a little comment that is, we can use this Raman spectroscopy for a very interesting effect. I think you are mentioning many effects, like there are other effects, which is electromagnetically induced transparency. So it's basically coupling three atomic states to create a dark state. And that is actually what results in quantum memory, like storage of light. So that is indeed like it's an extension of this. So that was just a comment that I wanted to make. So that is also there. So basically a dark state is formed, and there actually you can keep information, so you can store information.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it was actually in your welcome address by our chief guest, Professor Rajat Muna, also emphasizes the usefulness of this photonics. Okay,
Yes,
so when
absolutely.
you talked about this quantum applications, we're talking about electrons also by Mahavir. So now what will be the application of this electromagnetic and its technology? So so not only this usage is not only limited to this quantum memory or quantum computation.
It's in various fields. So I was just giving an example.
Okay. Yeah.
So following on that, so I'm a bit, so dark states, what do you exactly mean? Like, so if you can elaborate a bit, that will be great.
Yes. So it is like you need two electromagnetic waves, like two different waves connecting, say, three atomic states. You have two, normally we take two hyperfine states, ground hyperfine states, and one excited state. And when you couple them using two light, one is called a probe light, which is connecting two states. Initially, when the light just passes through atomic medium, or it can also be molecular medium, does not matter. We need transitions. So then what happens? The light is absorbed, and as a result of which the atoms undergo a transition, or the electrons undergo a transition to the excited state, which was already mentioned very nicely. Right. So then what would happen? It would be an absorption. When a second light field is introduced, which is called a control field, then actually one of the states, because of this optical pumping, and so one of the states become dark. So it is called transparency, means it's an interference phenomena. It is a destructive interference between the transition pathways. So transition probabilities, because of which destructive interference means what happens, that state becomes dark in the sense the probe cannot see it. So the photons are not available over there for a transition. So what happens, which would normally be opaque, now becomes transparent to the probe. Because normally it was opaque because there was absorption of the light. So now it becomes transparent because of this phenomenon.
So can you say that this is the one of this application of the stimulated scattering? You know, this stimulated
Yes,
extension of the
exactly.
stimulated effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the selection rules in Raman spectroscopy, like rather than a skip of one, there are two. I don't know if maybe there is a nice theoretical project that can be worked out to actually explain the selection rules that have a transition rather than of one, but
Yeah,
two.
for these dark states.
So for these dark states, that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, so it's
Yes.
a open project, open theme for all of you. So this will be interesting. So in analysis to the selection rules in terms of spectroscopy. So what will be the selection rules here? So
And, ma'am, we didn't get your name, so if you can please.
Shrobhana Chakraborty, Dr. Shrobhana Chakraborty.
from which institute?
I'm from Sister Nivedita University.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we are open. So anyone else?
Thank you all then.
Right.
Yeah.
So if not, then we thank you all, and we will reconvene again tomorrow morning. First talk will be at 10 o'clock. And I hope you enjoyed all of